The person you love has been hurting you for a long time, and you cannot quite tell why. They have not been cruel. They have not been absent. Something quieter has been wearing you out, and tonight you are going to find out what it is. It is not them. It is one silent expectation you have been placing on them, that they would make the inside of your life feel okay. The expectation is the toxic bond running underneath your relationship. Buddhism named this 25 centuries ago. No person can be the inside of another person's life, however much they love you. Tonight the expectation comes off, without becoming hard, without leaving anyone we love. You will see why the same disappointment keeps happening with the person you love, and how to stop it without changing them. You will see why ordinary disagreements have been keeping you awake at night. By the end of tonight, the weight in your chest will be lighter than it is right now. You can lie down for this. Let the shoulders drop, the jaw soften, the breath find its own depth. Wherever in the world you are listening from, it is good to have you here. Now, with the breath where you have just put it, listen for these sentences inside yourself. If only they would notice me before I have to point it out. If only they would call first. If only they would say the thing I have been waiting for them to say. If only they would change. If only they would arrive, finally, as the person I have been imagining since I was very young. You have been saying these sentences inside yourself for years. You may have never said them out loud. You may have never even fully heard them. They have been running anyway, quietly, behind every conversation with the person you love. That list is the demand. Tonight we are going to read it together, line by line, until you can see exactly what you have been asking them to do. The first line is the smallest. If only they would notice me before I have to point it out. Read what this line is actually asking. Notice me without my having to ask. Read my mind. Know what I need before I know what I need. No human being has ever been able to do this. Not the kindest partner, not the most attentive parent, not the most loyal friend. Your contract has been asking them to do it anyway, for years. You may already know exactly which moments come up when you read this line. The birthday they remembered too late. The meal you prepared they walked past. The good news you brought home that landed flat. The small kindness you offered that they did not seem to register. Each of those moments became another small entry in a ledger neither of you knew you were keeping. The ledger has been getting longer for years. Tonight is the first night anyone has shown it to you. The second line is louder. If only they would call first. Underneath this line is a small, hidden assumption. If they cared, they would call. If they do not call, they do not care. The math is wrong. The math has been running anyway. Every uncalled day becomes evidence. Every silence becomes proof. Every absence becomes a verdict. Notice that this line travels. It rides the small hours when the phone has not rung. It rides the moments after a difficult exchange when you wait, deliberately, to see whether they will reach first. It rides the holidays where one of you remembers and the other does not. Every time the line wins, something small inside you closes. The closing is not dramatic. It is the kind that adds up across years until two people who once felt close cannot quite remember when the closeness left. The third line is the heaviest. If only they would say the thing I have been waiting for them to say. Read it slowly. The waiting in this line is older than the relationship. The thing you are waiting for them to say is not a thing they failed to say last week. It is a thing the first person who was supposed to say it never said. You have carried the unsaid sentence into every relationship since. Every new person has been auditioned, quietly, for whether they might finally say it. The few who have said something close enough have been promoted to the people you love, and then asked, over time, to keep saying it. Each time they fail, the original wound gets reopened. The unsaid sentence varies. For some it is, I am proud of you. For some, I see how hard you tried. For some, I am sorry. For some, you did not deserve what happened to you. For some, you are not too much. Read your own list. The exact words may surprise you. They may have been waiting in you, in the same shape, for 30 or 40 years. The fourth line is the most dangerous. If only they would change. This line is the relationship's central contract. The person sitting across from you is being asked to become a different person. They cannot. They have been trying. The trying has been wearing them out. What you have been calling them difficult, they have been calling you exhausting. Both descriptions are accurate. Both descriptions are pointing at the same contract. The change you are asking for has a particular shape. Soften where they are sharp. Be present where they are absent. Be still where they are restless. Be patient where they are quick. The shape is the inverse of who they are. A person cannot become their inverse. They can, at most, visit the inverse for short periods, on good days. Most days they will be themselves. The contract reads each return to themselves as a betrayal. The fifth line is the oldest. If only they would arrive, finally, as the person I have been imagining since I was very young. This line is the contract's signature. It says, in plain words, that you have been waiting, for as long as you can remember, for someone to be the answer. The answer to the loneliness you do not always notice you have. The answer to the small, persistent ache underneath your better days. The answer to the question of whether your life is real. No one can be that answer. The answer is not in another person. The contract has been pointing at the wrong address for your entire life. The imagined person you have been waiting for has had many names. When you were 6, they were a grown-up who would finally see you. When you were 16, they were the one who would finally find you in a crowd. When you were 26, They were the one who would understand the parts of you no one had touched yet. Whoever you are tonight, they have a current name, a face you can almost see, a scene you can almost build in your head, in which the conversation finally goes the way you have always wanted it to go. That conversation will not happen with anyone. It was never going to be a thing one human said to another. It was a thing you were always going to need to find at home. These are 5 lines. Your contract has more. Each life writes its own. If you sit with the list for a few minutes, you will probably hear a few of your own that are not on this page. The lines vary by person. The shape of every contract is the same. Each line asks one human being to do something only the inside of you was ever supposed to do. Here are some others people have heard inside themselves. If only they would stop drinking. If only they would forgive me for what I did at 23. If only they would believe me when I tell them I am tired. If only they would be there when the hospital calls. If only they would understand, without my having to explain again, what last year cost me. Add your own. The list is longer than 5. Reading it is the work. Notice what these lines have in common. They come from the loving. Every line on the list comes from the part of you that has, for a long time, believed that if the right person did the right thing in the right moment, something inside you would finally come home. That is the toxic bond. Not what they did to you, what you have been asking them to do for you. Look at the contract in your hand. Look at the person you have been asking to sign it. They have been failing. They have been failing because no human in any relationship has ever been able to be what the contract asks. Not the partner, not the parent, not the child, not the friend, not the colleague, not the stranger you imagined would change everything if they walked into your life on the right Tuesday. The contract was built to fail. Every relationship in your life has been quietly being measured against an impossible document. This is why ordinary kindness so often does not feel like enough. They text back. They show up. They say the kind thing. The contract reads it, compares it to the impossible, and marks it insufficient. The relationship begins to feel toxic. The other person begins to feel on their side, as though nothing they do is ever quite right. Both of you are correct. Both of you are inside a contract neither of you knew you signed. This is also why people who love you sometimes drift away from you in slow, mysterious ways. They cannot name what is wrong. Neither can you. They sense, at some level, that they are being asked to carry something no person has the shape to carry. They start to retreat, small step by small step. The loving has begun to feel like an audition for a role they cannot quite play, and something in them needs to step off the stage. This is why we leave relationships and find ourselves, 3 years into the next one, back in the same fight. The person changes. The contract does not. The new partner who started so different ends up, 3 years in, feeling like the old one. The new job that promised a different kind of validation offers the same flat aftertaste as the old one. The new friend suddenly sounds like an old friend. The pattern repeats because the contract has not been touched. The contract is older than this relationship. You did not write it down here. You have been carrying it from one person to another for most of your life. In its earliest form, it was made before you had words. A small one in a crib needs an adult to come. Sometimes the adult comes. Sometimes the adult does not. Sometimes the adult comes physically and not entirely. The body is in the room, the eyes are elsewhere. Inside the small one, a quiet promise begins shaping itself. If only the right one arrives, with the right look, with the right hands, with the eyes that see only me, something inside me will finally settle. That promise becomes the first line of the contract. It moves with you into school, into your first friendship, into your first heartbreak, into your first job, into the bedroom of your first long relationship. The faces change. The contract does not. You may be hearing, as we name this together, a particular face surfacing in you. The person whose love has felt, for a long time, like it was always 1 inch short of what you needed. The face you have been quietly editing for years, hoping the editing might become reality. Let that face be present. They do not know about the contract. They have been in the relationship the two of you can see. What we are looking at tonight has been hidden under that relationship the whole time. Read the contract closely. What it is asking is impossible. It asks the partner to be the parent who never quite arrived. It asks the parent to be the partner who has not arrived yet. It asks the friend to be every absent person from the lonely years. It asks the body to be a stranger to itself. It asks the morning, simply by arriving, to deliver something the morning was never assigned to deliver. No one has signed it. No one knows about it. They have been failing it daily for years because the contract is invisible even to the person holding it. The work tonight is small. We are putting the contract on the kitchen table where you can see it. A contract you cannot see is running you. A contract you can see, you can begin to put down. A contract under fluorescent kitchen light loses most of its power. Yours has been holding court in the dark of you for a very long time. The work of this space is to speak the lines, aloud, in your own voice, until they cannot hide anymore. The naming does not change what the partner does next. The naming changes who is holding the next thing the partner does. A witnessed contract is a contract that has lost its grip. The witness is you. The grip is what we are loosening tonight. That is also the door to the next part of the evening. If the contract is yours, not theirs, then no one outside is going to release it for you. The partner cannot. The parent cannot. The friend cannot. The new lover cannot. The promotion cannot. The morning cannot. Whatever you have been waiting for the world to deliver, the world has never had the right tools for the job. What that means for the morning after the partner finally said the thing, for the morning after the promotion finally arrived, For the morning after the long-awaited reconciliation, when you woke up and the inside of your chest felt the same, is the question we walk into next. Walk into that morning with me. The partner has finally said the thing. Last night, across the dinner table, after years of waiting, they said it. You went to bed expecting tonight to be the night you finally slept differently. You woke up and waited for the great release the contract had been promising for years would arrive on the morning the right thing finally happened. The release did not arrive. You looked at the partner sleeping next to you. Same person, same room, same body in the same chest, same quiet ache underneath the breastbone. Whatever had been waiting to come home, at the sound of those words, had not come home. This is the morning many people never quite let themselves see. The morning after the promotion lands, the morning after the move into the new house, the morning after the wedding, the morning after the new relationship is 2 months old and the body had been so sure this one would feel different. Each of these mornings, in their own private way, contains the same small, almost unspeakable disappointment. The promotion lands and the office is the same office. The new house is a new house with the same person living inside it. The wedding is over and what is left is 2 ordinary people in a kitchen. The new relationship is now a relationship with all of a relationship's weight. The inside of you, in each case, is unchanged. The mind, faced with this, almost never draws the conclusion the morning is offering. The mind concludes, instead, that the right candidate has not yet arrived. The promotion was not big enough. The partner is not the final partner. The house was the wrong house. The wedding day was beautiful and the marriage will be the real arrival. The mind moves the goalposts because the alternative, at this stage, is unbearable. The alternative is that no candidate has ever been the answer. No candidate ever will be. The whole arrangement has been pointed, the entire time, at the wrong sky. This is the morning the contract loses its case. The contract has been promising you, in plain, unspoken language, that the right arrival would settle the inside of you. The right arrival has now happened. The inside of you has not been settled. The contract has nothing left to argue with. Most people, at this point, do something quiet and devastating. They blame themselves, or they blame the moment, or they conclude, very slowly, that nothing is ever going to be enough. There is a 4th possibility. The 4th possibility is what early Buddhist teaching has been pointing at for nearly 25 centuries. The morning failed because the morning was being asked to do a job no morning can do. The hollow inside you is not in the world. It cannot be reached from the world. Whatever the world brings home, the world cannot, by where it is and where you are, reach the place that is hollow. Sit with that for a moment. If the hollow has a different address than the world, then no arrival is going to reach it. the list of things you have been waiting for is long. The partner is on it, the parent, the promotion, the apology, the new house, the body that finally feels good in clothes, the friend who finally calls, the morning that finally feels different. Every entry on the list has the same wrong address. Look at how the mind has been working all your life. The hollow opens. The mind looks around for something that might match its shape. The mind finds candidates, other people, achievements, substances, relationships, approval, a particular voice on the other end of a phone call. The mind arranges your life around acquiring them. The plan is reasonable on paper. If the hollow has the shape of love, get more love. If it has the shape of being seen, get more being seen. If it has the shape of safety, get more safety. The plan has the structure of arithmetic. Only the address is wrong. The hollow lives one step closer in than anything in the world. It lives inside the looking, in the place from which you are doing the looking. Whatever you bring back from the world is brought back by the part of you that is looking. The hollow is in the looker, not in what is brought back. The list grows over a lifetime. At 7, the candidate was a parent who would finally see the homework laid out on the table. At 14, the candidate was the friend at school who would finally choose you back. At 22, the candidate was the first love who would finally make the long ache stop. At 30, the candidate was a career that would finally settle the question of whether your life was a real one. At 40, the candidate may be a spiritual practice itself, the one that will finally arrive, finally land, finally close the small wound that has been quietly running every list. Each candidate, in its turn, was a sincere attempt by the mind to do its job. Each candidate, in its turn, was looking in the wrong place. There comes a moment, for some people, when the recognition finally lands. It can come on a Tuesday afternoon for no particular reason. It can come the morning after a death. It can come during a long flight, looking at the small clouds below. It can come during a quiet meal with someone you love. The recognition is not dramatic. It is small. It is a quiet, almost embarrassed realization. Oh, no one is ever going to come. No one was ever going to. The arrival I have been waiting for has never been on its way. The waiting has been the cost. The Buddha had a precise word for what has been running this whole arrangement. He called it a thirst. A thirst that cannot be ended by drinking. Drinking, in fact, sharpens it. Each arrival increases the appetite for the next arrival. The mind that has been drinking from the world for 40 years has a thirstier, more sophisticated thirst than it had at 20. The promotion of last year now requires a bigger promotion. The relationship that once felt enough now requires more enoughness. The apology that finally arrived now requires further apologies for the years it took. The thirst grows. It becomes more articulate. Notice the thirst in your own day. It rides the moment you finish your morning coffee and reach for the phone. It rides the half second after a meal when you scan the kitchen for what to have next. It rides the gap between finishing one task and beginning the next. It rides the small, almost unconscious checking of how you feel each time you put something in your body or take something into your eyes. The thirst is asking, in each of those moments, the same quiet question. Did that fix it? Did that fix it? Did that fix it? The answer is always no. The thirst sends the mind looking for the next thing. The looking is the thirst. This is the structure early Buddhism named with great care. The thirst is automatic. It is built into a mind that believes the hollow has an outside address. No willpower can exhaust this thirst. No achievement is large enough to satisfy it. No partner is beautiful enough, kind enough, attentive enough to satisfy it. The arithmetic does not work because the equation is set up wrong. If you have ever wondered why people who appear to have everything sometimes take their own lives, this is one place the question opens. The thirst is invisible from the outside. A life that looks full on paper can be the thirstiest life of all, because each external arrival adds another candidate to the list of things that should have worked and did not. The list grows long. The hollow stays the same shape. Eventually, some people stop trusting any candidate at all. For most of us, the experience is quieter. A flatness in the afternoon, a particular hour of the evening when the chest aches without any specific reason. A vague unwillingness to enjoy the things that, by every measure, we should be enjoying. A small, persistent suspicion that something has been promised and is taking too long to arrive. That suspicion is the thirst. Naming it does not make it disappear. Naming it changes what we think the thirst is asking us to do. The thirst is asking you to look at the location of the cup. Here is the small, very strange mercy. If no outside thing can ever fill the hollow, then no outside thing has the power to remove the hollow either. The partner who left did not take the hollow with them. The promotion that was given to someone else did not take it with it. The apology that never came did not deepen what was already there before they failed to apologize. The hollow has been with you the entire time, regardless of the world's behavior, which means the world cannot make it worse, which means you are, in a way you may never have noticed, already free of the world's verdict on you. Notice what this means in practice. The friend who stopped writing did not take the inside of you with them. The years your parent was unable to be the parent you needed did not rob the inside of you of anything that was ever theirs to give. The career you did not have did not deprive you of a self you would have had if it had gone differently. Whatever the world decided about you, on whichever Tuesday, the inside of you was already exactly what it has always been. Untouched. The inside of you lives in a place the world cannot reach, which means it lives in a place no Tuesday can decide about. This is hard to hear at first. The hope that the right person, the right job, the right house, the right child, the right repair of the past will finally make it stop has held many of us together for a long time. Letting go of that hope feels At first, like grief. Allow the grief. The grief is the body recognizing the truth. A future that was never going to deliver what it promised has been costing you the present every day it has held the lease on your imagination. The grief is real. Many of us have been holding this hope for 30, 40, 50 years. It has organized the small choices: whom to date, where to live, which job to take, which version of yourself to display in which room. Letting the hope go feels, for some, like the loss of a long companion. Allow that. The companion was not real. The grief for it is real. Both can be true at once. The grief is also the doorway. On the other side of it, the world becomes a place you can enjoy without needing it to save you. The partner becomes a person again, ordinary, imperfect, belonging to themselves. The work becomes work. The morning becomes a morning. Each thing becomes itself. The cup of tea is allowed to be a cup of tea. The conversation is allowed to be a conversation. The body is allowed to be a body. Nothing is being asked to do the work of saving you, because that work is no longer being assigned to anyone outside. This shifts what every ordinary disappointment now means. The text that came back too short, the friend who did not call, the look from your partner that landed wrong last week. Each of those small disappointments was the contract reading the world for a verdict on the inside of you. The contract has been doing this every day, all day, for as long as you can remember. Once the contract comes off, the disappointments stay. The verdict reading stops. A disappointment becomes a disappointment. Small, brief, survivable. The body lets it pass. The day continues. There is one more layer to look at before we move forward. The hollow, by itself, is not actually unbearable. Many people live with it most of their lives without it bringing them to their knees. What brings us to our knees, what wakes us before we are ready to be awake, what makes ordinary disappointment feel intolerable, is something we add to the hollow. Something we pick up, almost by reflex, the moment the world fails to fill us. A second wound that we do not see ourselves making. The Buddha had a precise word for it, a precise image, an arrow. Look at your hand for a moment. The arrow is already in it. The Buddha told his students this. An ordinary person, when struck by a painful feeling, grieves, laments, beats the chest, falls into confusion. That person, said the Buddha, feels two pains at once. The pain that landed, and then a second pain, as if shot by a second arrow. The first arrow is the world's. Bodies are tender, hearts are tender, lives are full of small, sharp moments that strike without our consent. The phone call no one wants, the diagnosis at the wrong age, the partner who has changed in a way you did not see coming, The friend who turns out to have been carrying something you had not noticed. First arrows fly through every life. No practice prevents them. The second arrow is yours. The second arrow is the story you start telling about the first one. The replay loop. The composed responses you never sent. The list of all the people who do not have to deal with this kind of arrow. The accusation made against yourself for having been in the place the first arrow could find you. The accusation made against the world for shooting it in the first place. All of that the Buddha named with one small word: arrow. Notice this in your own week. A recent first arrow. Something that landed. Notice what your mind has done with it since. The replay. The waking earlier than you used to. The way the evening tightens around the moment you last thought about it. The body holding itself slightly braced, all the time, in case the arrow comes again. Most of the suffering you have been carrying since the original event is not the original event. It is your hand, reaching back, drawing the next arrow, firing it again. There is one place the second arrow lives most often. Inside relationships. Someone you love does an ordinary human thing, forgets a date, speaks too quickly, is tired in a way that lands wrong. The first arrow is small. It would have lasted 10 minutes if you had let it lie where it fell. Instead, the second arrow gets drawn almost instantly. They always do this. They never see me. They have not changed. They will never change. This is who they really are. The arrow lands in your own chest first. Then it gets fired, sometimes outwardly, sometimes only inwardly, at them. By the time you have finished firing, the small original moment has been turned into something the relationship will carry for a week, maybe a year, maybe forever, if the arrow is allowed to keep its course unobserved. This is also, in the most ordinary sense, what makes a relationship feel toxic. Most relationships called toxic are relationships where two people have been firing second arrows at each other for a long time without seeing themselves do it. The first arrows that started it all, in many cases, were ordinary, human, not particularly cruel. What turned the situation toxic was the steady, unwitnessed firing of second arrows back and forth across the kitchen table for years. Some couples, at this point, separate. Some, very quietly, begin to put their bows down. Sometimes only one of them does. Sometimes that is enough, over time, for the other to begin doing the same. You may already know which version of this is in your own relationship. The argument that has been the same argument, with different details, for the past 5 years. The night when one person finally said the thing both of you had been silently rehearsing, and the next 3 weeks were spent firing arrows at it from inside your own heads. The Sunday phone call with a parent that has, for as long as you can remember, ended the same way, with both of you tired and slightly hurt and unable to say why. Those long-running difficulties have rarely been about the original first arrows. They have been about the steady, daily firing of second arrows that no one ever named. Something quiet happens when one person in a long relationship begins to put their bow down. They do not always announce it. The other person sometimes notices, sometimes does not. What changes is that the small wars in the kitchen stop having two combatants. One of you fires, the other does not return fire. The arrow falls in the middle of the floor, and the room is very quiet for a few seconds. Over months, the small wars get smaller. Some couples, at this point, rediscover each other. Some, with great kindness, realize they have been at war over arrows neither of them was actually firing, and the marriage was always a relationship. There is a moment in every second arrow firing where the choice exists. It is small. It comes a few seconds after the first arrow has landed, just before the second arrow is drawn. Most of us miss it. We feel the first arrow. We reach back automatically. The second arrow is already in flight. The work right now is to begin noticing the moment is there. The first time you catch yourself reaching for the second arrow, the catching is small. You will fire the arrow anyway. What changes is that, very quietly, you have begun watching yourself fire it. Watching is the beginning of stopping. Imagine the next time it happens. Someone you love says something that lands wrong. The first arrow just hit. Your shoulders are already rising. The story is already beginning to write itself. They always do this. In the half second between the first arrow landing and the second arrow being drawn, a small voice notices. Oh, here it is. The second arrow is in my hand. The voice is small. The voice does not stop the arrow. The voice changes who is holding the arrow. Until tonight, the arrow was being held by an unwitnessed reflex. Now it is being held by a witnessed one. A witnessed reflex, over time, becomes a slower reflex. A slower reflex eventually becomes a choice. The second arrow has a particular feel in the body. A small, familiar tightening in the throat or the chest. A bracing in the shoulders that comes too quickly to be the first arrow's doing. A jaw that locks before you have decided to be angry. A fist that closes inside the pocket. Each of these is the body recognizing a movement it has done 1,000 times. The body has learned the shape of the second arrow as well as any habit you have. Drawing the bow, notching the arrow, pulling back, firing, all in less than a second. Slowing this down is itself a kind of practice. Even a half second of awareness inside the firing changes the firing. There is a particular hour of the day when most second arrows get fired. The hour varies by person. Some of us fire them in the shower at the end of a long day. Some on the walk between the desk and the kitchen. Some in the gap between waking and getting up. Some during a meal we are not really tasting. Notice, over the next week, when your particular hour is, notice what the second arrow tends to look like in your hand, whose face it is aimed at, whose words it is rehearsing against, what story it tries to write into your evening. The noticing is the practice. Nothing else is required tonight. The remarkable thing about second arrows is how many of them are fired at people who are no longer in the room. Sometimes the people are no longer in your life at all. A parent who died 15 years ago, a friend who moved continents and stopped writing, a first love whose face you can still see when you close your eyes, a version of yourself you have outgrown. The second arrow does not need the original target to be present. It can be fired for years at a memory. Some of the heaviest second arrows in any life are aimed at memories the original first arrow shooter would not even remember. You probably already have a face in mind. A parent who said something at a family dinner you can still play back word for word 20 years later. A teacher whose offhand comment in front of the class is still one of the heaviest sentences inside you. A first love whose final message you have read, over the years, hundreds of times. The first arrow landed once. The second arrow has been fired at the memory on hundreds of evenings since. The teacher does not remember the comment. The parent died unaware they had said anything that mattered. The first love has gone on to live a life you have no part in. The arrow has continued to fire anyway, at a target that has been gone for years. This is one of the gentler and more painful recognitions in the teaching. The person you have been hurt by, in many cases, stopped hurting you a long time ago. What has been hurting you since is your hand, reaching back into the past, drawing the next arrow, firing it again. The first arrow has long since fallen on the ground. The second arrow is being drawn freshly each evening, in the kitchen, in the bath, in the half hour before sleep. Notice this without blaming yourself. The mind has been doing what it knows. The mind has not yet been shown that the original target has left the room. There is also a kind of second arrow we fire at ourselves directly. The shame loop, the list of moments we wish we had handled differently, the voice that catalogues our small failures across the day, the accusation that we should have known, should have asked, should have left, should have stayed. The first arrow, in these cases, was a moment of being human in a difficult situation. Everything since has been the second arrow. Notice, with the same gentleness, when this version is in your hand. Watch this version closely tonight. It does not always feel like an arrow. It can feel like the truth about who you are. The voice that says, I should have left earlier. I should have spoken up. I should have known. I should have been kinder. I should have been less. I should have been more. Each of those sentences, read closely, is a second arrow. Each one is being fired at a version of yourself that no longer exists, a version that did the best it could with what it had at the time. The version that did the thing has long since walked out of the room. The arrow is being aimed at the empty chair where they were sitting. There is a version of the second arrow that fires before any first arrow has landed. The preemptive arrow. It looks like this. You are about to call a parent who has often said the wrong thing on the phone. Before they pick up, you have already drawn an arrow against what they are likely to say. By the time they say hello, the arrow has already been fired at a sentence they have not yet spoken. Most of the call is then spent inside that preemptive wound, reading every word they say through it. The wound is real. The first arrow, the one from the world, has not yet arrived. It may not arrive at all. The preemptive arrow has done the damage on its own. Notice the preemptive arrow next time you are about to walk into a room where it usually fires. The body knows the room. The arrow is already half drawn before you are through the door. A piece of good news lives quietly inside this teaching. The second arrow, being made by you, can be put down by you. The first arrow is the world's. The second arrow is yours. What is yours can be released. The release does not require the world to apologize. It does not require the original shooter to take their arrow back. It does not require the past to be different than it was. The release happens at the level of the hand that has been drawing the second arrow, evening after evening, for years. That hand is yours. It can stop drawing. Tonight, you do not have to never fire a second arrow again. What you can do tonight is begin to notice the moment your hand reaches for one. The notice is the practice. The hand, seen, begins to slow. The arrow, seen, sometimes does not get drawn at all. Sometimes it still gets drawn, and you watch it leave, and the watching is itself a kind of release. Even an arrow that lands is less catastrophic when you have seen yourself fire it. Look back across the past 5 or 10 years. Notice how many of the heaviest things you have been carrying are first arrows. Notice how many are second arrows. The first arrows were the events, the losses, the arguments that ended badly, the moments the world did something the body did not want it to do. The second arrows have been the years afterward, the replays, the unfinished sentences, the way certain rooms in your house still feel slightly heavier than other rooms because of what was said there once, long ago. The first arrows are countable. The second arrows have been continuous. Most of what you have called your difficult years has been the second arrow kept in flight by your own quiet hand. There is one more thing worth saying about the second arrow before we move on. The second arrow is fired most often at very specific places in the day. 8 specific places, as the early teachers came to recognize. 8 winds that blow through every ordinary day, moving the heart back and forth between elation and ache, hope and disappointment. Once you can see the 8 winds, you can begin to see why the second arrow keeps reaching for the bow at the same hours each day. That is the next door. The second arrow does not reach for the bow at random. It reaches at 8 specific moments. 8 winds that blow through every ordinary day. Gain and loss, fame and disrepute, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. The Buddha named these 8 as a teaching that has, for centuries, helped people see why an ordinary day feels so tired by sundown. The 8 come in pairs. Each pair is the same wind blowing in opposite directions. When the wind blows in your favor, the mind opens. When it blows against you, the mind closes. Most days, for most of us, are spent inside that opening and closing. Walk with me through one ordinary day, the kind you may have had recently. The morning begins. A small wind of pleasure blows. The first sip of coffee, the exact temperature of the water in the shower, a soft moment with the dog, the cat, the partner, the small child. The mind leans toward this wind and presses itself into the pleasant. Then the wind shifts. The shower runs cold. The dog has been sick on the rug. The partner is in a mood you cannot quite read. A small wind of pain. The mind leans away. Then the wind of gain. An email arrives with good news. A small confirmation that the work matters. A pay rise. A new opportunity. A friend reaching out unexpectedly. The mind leans into the gain and lifts a little. Then the wind of loss. An email from someone who has decided not to. A bill larger than expected. A friend who did not reach out the way you needed. A subscription you forgot to cancel. The mind leans away. Then the wind of praise. A small comment on something you made. A look across the room at a meeting that says, "Good work." A child who tells you, without any cause, that you are kind. The mind opens slightly, warms, stretches toward the wind. Then the wind of blame. A criticism in a voice you respect. An offhand remark you cannot stop turning over. A look that lingered a half second longer than it should have. The mind closes. The body braces. The blame becomes, for the next several hours, the center of the day's gravity. Then the wind of fame, in its small, ordinary form. Someone seems to know your name in a place you did not expect. A friend mentions you to someone you do not know in a way you can sense even from a distance. A small notification of recognition. The mind catches it like a small leaf. Then the wind of disrepute. The whisper that did not include you. The conversation that paused when you walked in. The sense, sometimes accurate and sometimes only imagined, that you have been spoken about and not in your favor. The mind tightens around this wind for the rest of the afternoon. Sit with the day described and notice what was happening underneath all of it. The mind was leaning, for most of the day, in 8 directions, sometimes within a single conversation. A morning that started with pleasure had, by mid-afternoon, turned into a long catalogue of leaning. The day's actual content, measured by what was happening in the room, may have been quite small. The day's experience, measured by how much the mind was moved, was vast. This is how a life can feel exhausting without ever being, on paper, particularly demanding. The body has been bracing in 8 directions all day. By evening, the body is tired in a way that has nothing to do with what the body has actually done. The body is tired from a day of leaning. This is the trial that has been running underneath every ordinary day. Praise arrives and the mind reads, "The verdict is good." Blame arrives and the mind reads, The verdict is bad. Gain and the world is letting me stay. Loss and the world is asking me to leave. Each ordinary wind has been arriving as evidence in a trial about whether you, in your basic existence, are allowed. The trial never reaches a verdict because the trial is endless. Every wind is fresh evidence. Every day is a new hearing. Look at the back of your neck for a moment. Look at the small pile of work that has accumulated there over the years from doing this. The shoulders that learned to brace whenever the wind shifted. The jaw that learned to lock before the next exchange. The chest that learned to close for safety the moment a wind of blame began to gather. None of these were chosen. All of them were intelligent responses to a life lived inside an endless trial. The body has been trying to protect you for years from something that was never actually happening. The wind is weather. The body has been treating it as judgment. Once seen, the bracing softens across many slow months. Look closely at the relationships that have hurt you most. Many of them, if you let yourself see clearly, are relationships in which the 8 winds have been blowing very hard. The partner who praises and then blames, often within the same conversation. The parent who confers fame and disrepute by the way they speak about you to others. The friend who can give an enormous gain of attention and an enormous loss of it from one week to the next. The relationship feels toxic because it is the place where these 8 winds have been blowing at their strongest. What we have been trying to manage, in many cases, is not the person. It is our exposure to all 8 winds at maximum strength inside a single intimacy. The early teachers had a particular instruction for this, and it is gentler than it sounds. Let the 8 winds blow. Do not lean. Stand the way an old tree stands, with roots deep enough that the wind moves the leaves and not the trunk. The wind will continue. Praise will arrive. Sometimes from people you respect, sometimes from people whose praise you do not need. Blame will arrive, sometimes deserved, sometimes carrying someone else's weather. Gain and loss will alternate the way they alternate in every life. Pleasure and pain will trade places, often within the same hour. The teaching is to feel the leaves move and let the trunk stay where it is. A practical way to begin is small. Notice, across one ordinary day, when each of the 8 winds blows. Each time praise arrives, notice the lift in the chest. Let the lift be there. Do not chase it. Each time blame arrives, notice the small contraction. Let the contraction be there. Do not run from it. Gain, loss, fame, disrepute, pleasure, pain, each one, over the course of a day, visits. Notice that each one passes. Praise that arrives at 10 in the morning is gone by lunch. Blame that lands at 3 in the afternoon is mostly forgotten by sleep, when it has been let alone. The winds are weather. Weather changes. There is something quietly liberating about this practice. The winds are not personal. The praise that landed today did not arrive because of who you fundamentally are. It arrived because the wind happened to blow that direction. The blame did not land because of who you fundamentally are. It landed because the wind happened to blow the other way. Most of what we have taken personally, in the deepest sense, was just the weather of the 8 winds blowing through whatever rooms we happen to be standing in. There is a second use for this practice. Once you can see the 8 winds blowing through your own day, you can begin to see them blowing through someone else's. The partner who arrived home in a cold mood is not, in that moment, a verdict on your worth. They are standing in the wind of pain or the wind of loss or the wind of blame, picked up from somewhere across their day, and the wind is moving through their leaves. Most evenings in long relationships, we have been treating each other's weather as a verdict. When the partner is silent at dinner, we have read silence as a verdict on us. The silence, often, was the wind of a difficult email, the wind of a body that did not sleep well, the wind of a small, unrelated grief. The verdict was not in the silence. The verdict was in our reading of the silence. Watch one ordinary evening with someone you love through this. They walk in tired. The wind of pain has been blowing on them all day, from sources they cannot name. You read the tiredness as a verdict on you. You feel the wind of blame moving in, from inside your own chest. Your shoulders rise. Your tone shortens. They feel a wind of blame coming back at them now, from your direction, on top of whatever wind they were already standing in. Their tone shortens. A small, difficult evening has been built, in less than 3 minutes, entirely out of weather neither of you generated on purpose. Most of the small wars in long relationships have this shape. 8 winds, blowing through 2 people, read by both of them as verdicts. The same applies to the praise the partner gives you on a good evening. The praise is real. The praise is also weather. They are standing, in that moment, in a wind that allows the praise to come easily. Tomorrow's wind may not. When you can hold both truths, the praise lands without becoming the floor of your day, and its absence tomorrow does not become the ceiling. Notice the 8 winds blowing through you, not only from outside. The wind of self-praise, when you do something well and the mind quietly preens. The wind of self-blame, when you do something poorly and the mind catalogues it. The wind of personal gain, when the body tightens with small satisfaction. The wind of personal loss, when the body tightens with small grief. Half of the 8 winds you encounter today will not arrive from anyone outside. They will arrive from inside your own commentary on yourself. The same instruction applies. Let those winds blow. Do not lean toward the praise. Do not run from the blame. The trunk that stays still inside your own commentary is the same trunk that stays still inside the world's. There is a particular small moment to watch for over the coming weeks. The first time you feel a wind of blame arrive and notice that the trunk did not move. The leaves moved. The chest tightened a little. The familiar reading of the wind as a verdict began to write itself. The deeper part of you, the part that lives lower than the leaves, stayed where it was. It is small the first time it happens. It can pass before you notice it. Notice it the second time. A body that has felt the trunk stay still once knows something it did not know before. A second time confirms it. A third time, the body begins to trust that the trunk has been there the whole time. Try this tomorrow, across one quiet hour. Track the 8 winds the way a person watches the actual sky. Wind from the east, wind from the west, wind from somewhere unexpected. The watching does not stop the wind. The watching stops the leaning. Over time, a kind of quiet returns to the body that you may not have felt for years. The quiet of a tree that is not being uprooted by every gust. The quiet of leaves moving on their own, while the trunk holds where it is. The day that confirms the practice is usually small. A morning when a parent says something across the breakfast table that would have ruined the day a year ago. This morning, the body still feels the small contraction. The mind still begins the familiar reading. Something else happens too. The deeper part of you watches the contraction without doing anything about it. The deeper part of you reads the reading without believing it. 20 minutes later, you are walking the dog, and you notice that the morning is no longer the center of the day. The wind blew. The leaves moved. The trunk stayed. Life continued. Over time, the practice begins to change the small movements of the body in a room. You walk into a difficult conversation and the body does not brace the way it used to. You stay in the conversation longer than you used to because you are not rehearsing your defense the entire time. The other person feels the difference, often without knowing what they are feeling. Something has eased between you, without either of you having to do anything to ease it on purpose. Some evenings, perhaps for the first time in years, there is room in the silence for both of you to simply be tired together. Some listeners, hearing this, begin to feel a quiet, uncomfortable worry. If I stop leaning, will I become hard? Will I become indifferent? Will I no longer be moved by the praise of someone I love, by the loss of someone I have lost, by the small pleasures of an ordinary day? The worry is honest. The worry has a face. Most of us know someone who let go of a difficult relationship and came back from it harder, smaller in the room, less present in it. The worry asks whether stopping the leaning has the same shape as that hardness. The worry deserves an honest answer. We will give it one before this evening is over. Look at one of those faces. You probably know one. A friend who left a marriage and came back from it harder. A sibling who stopped speaking to a parent and now keeps the world at one careful arm's length. A colleague who walked away from a company they had given themselves to and walked back into the world with something closed in the eyes. All of them stopped leaning. None of them seem freer. The worry asks whether their face is what the trunk staying still actually produces. It is not. What those faces show is something the early teachers had a separate name for: aversion. Aversion looks identical to letting go from the outside. The two are nearly opposite from the inside. Both walk away from a relationship. Both say, I am not going to keep being hurt by this. then they do different things next. Aversion contracts. It begins screening every new person against the old one. It refuses to soften towards strangers, because softening is what got it hurt the last time. It carries the same contract you set down earlier, only inverted. Where the contract once demanded that someone fill the hollow, aversion now demands that no one ever come close enough to disappoint it again. Aversion has not actually let go. It has changed strategies. A heart that has actually let go does something stranger. It softens. It softens toward the person it left. It softens toward the next person it meets. It softens toward the parts of itself that signed the original contract. The softening does not mean it goes back to the relationship. The softening means the wall that could have been built is not built. The relationship the released heart has now, with the person it left, has lost some of its old warmth. It has not turned cold either. It has turned honest. Whatever needs to be there is there. Whatever does not need to be there has gone. The room is clear. Look at the two faces side by side. The face that came back from a difficult ending harder has stopped letting weather move it. It has stopped leaning and stopped softening at the same time. Its face has the quality of a tree whose branches have been bound with wire to keep the wind from doing anything to it. The tree no longer bends. The tree no longer breathes. What is left is a kind of standing that is not actually living. The other face, the one that came back from the same kind of decision more alive, stopped leaning without binding the branches. The wind moves through. The branches still bend. The trunk stayed where it was the whole time. The early Mahayana teachers were very alert to this risk. Shantideva, a Tibetan tradition voice from over 1,000 years ago, wrote a long verse poem on how the heart trains itself. Most of what he wrote can be summarized in one uncomfortable observation. It is much easier to harden than to release. The two look the same from outside. The two are almost opposite inside. Renunciation, in the sense Shantideva meant, is a specific change in how the body is present in a room. The change is hard to describe directly. It is something closer to the calm of a person who has been carrying a heavy stone for 30 years and has set the stone down and is noticing, for the first time in a long while, what their hands feel like when they are empty. Hands that have just put down a stone are not numb. They tingle. They feel the air across the knuckles. They feel the way the fingers move on their own when they are not holding anything. A heart that has just released a contract feels. It feels more than it did before. The contract had been numbing the heart through constant strain. Released, the heart is closer to itself than it has been in a long time. There is a small surprise that arrives, for some, a few weeks into this work. A partner says something that should have launched a familiar argument. The body waits for the arrow. The arrow does not come. The mind notices that the contract did not pull back the bow this time. The room is quiet for a moment. The partner notices it too, in a way they cannot quite name. The conversation goes somewhere small and ordinary. The dishes get put away. The lights go off. Both of you sleep. A fight that would have lasted a week did not happen. Neither of you knows quite why. Notice what returns when the contract comes off. An unexpected ease around strangers. The cashier at the supermarket whose tired face you actually notice now. The friend whose voice you can hear without already deciding what their voice means about you. The partner, if you are still with them, who suddenly has a body and a face you have not really looked at in years. The world becomes, very quietly, more available. You are easier to be with. You are easier to surprise. You are easier to love. There is a particular sensation in the chest the first time the contract is set down. It is not joy. It is closer to the feeling of a held breath being given permission to leave. The chest opens half an inch. The shoulders drop a little further than they have for months. The face, in a mirror, looks slightly less like the face you have been carrying. Many people miss this sensation the first time. The mind is so used to bracing for the next thing that it does not notice the bracing has stopped. The body knows. The body has been waiting for years to be allowed to stop. This contradicts something most of us have been told, in different ways, for most of our lives. We have been told that the way to be lovable is to lean harder, to care more visibly, to make our needs known so that the world can fill them. The teaching here points the other way. The way to become lovable is to stop demanding that anyone make you feel real. When the demand comes off, something underneath the demand becomes visible. The actual person, the one who has been hidden behind the contract for years. That person turns out to be more interesting than the one who was always reaching. Other people respond to the actual person, often without being able to say why. The relationship most likely to change first is the one you live with. The partner across the dinner table, the flatmate who shares a kitchen, the parent who calls every Sunday, the adult child who comes home for the holidays. Whatever you have been quietly demanding of them has been the flaw of the relationship. When the demand comes off, the flaw changes. They feel the change before they understand it. A small softness enters their shoulders when you walk into the room. Their voice, when they speak to you, has half a second more space in it than it used to. The relationship has been slightly, almost imperceptibly, de-escalated. Neither of you has done anything dramatic. The contract has been quietly amended on your side of the table. Notice what happens to the people you have already left. They become the people they actually were, not the cast the contract had given them. Some you grieve more honestly. Some you forgive more easily. Some you remember with a warm gratitude you did not have before. There is a verse in Shantideva's poem that says, in essence, that whatever happiness exists in the world comes from wishing others to be happy, and whatever suffering exists in the world comes from wishing oneself to be happy. This sounds backwards at first. Reflect on that once more, with that earlier contract in mind. Wishing oneself to be happy, the way the contract has been wishing it, is the demand that the world fill the hollow. That demand has been the source of most of our suffering. Wishing others to be happy, by contrast, is the orientation of a heart that no longer needs the world to be a particular way. A heart that has stopped demanding becomes, almost without trying, a heart that wishes well to whatever is in front of it. There is a particular kind of love that becomes available only after the demand has come off. You may have felt it once or twice, usually in moments that surprised you. A morning with a parent who is now old and frail, when something between you that had been tight for decades simply released, and you found yourselves drinking tea together as two people instead of as a contract. An hour with a partner during a long illness, when you stopped expecting them to be the one they used to be, and they became, simply, the one in front of you. A walk with an old friend in which neither of you was performing the friendship, just walking. Those moments were what love looks like when no contract is running. The teaching here is that those moments do not have to be rare. They are available whenever the demand is allowed to come off. There is a specific small kindness that becomes available once the contract is off. You can wish a difficult parent well in the same week they have hurt you. You can wish a former partner well without wishing they would come back. You can wish a colleague well even though they were the one who got the promotion. The well-wishing is not performance. It does not require you to forgive what they did. It is simply the body's natural movement when no contract is asking it to stay closed. Some listeners, hearing this, wonder whether loving someone without demanding anything in return means becoming a doormat. The teaching is precise on this. A heart that has released its contracts is more able to set boundaries. The boundary that comes from a settled trunk is firm and easy. The boundary that comes from a leaning trunk is brittle and hard to hold. The released heart can say no without resentment, walk away without bitterness, end a friendship without composing speeches in the shower for months afterward. The released heart is also more capable of saying yes when yes is what is wanted, without the small, hidden contract that wants the yes to be repaid. The first weeks of this work are mostly noticing the contract reaching for the bow, noticing the small body movements that have been arming you for arguments before they begin. Noticing the sentences you have been quietly demanding people answer. Most days, nothing visible changes. By the third or fourth week, something quieter shifts. A morning arrives where the partner says the wrong thing and you do not spend the next 40 minutes inside the wound it would have made a year ago. You make breakfast. You go to work. You come home. The morning was not perfect. The morning did not ruin the day. That is the first concrete change. What people in your life notice when this shift begins in you is hard to describe. They cannot name it. Usually, they might say something like, "You seem different. You are easier to be with. Something has loosened." What they are noticing is the absence of the contract that they did not know they were signing every time they were in the room with you. They had been carrying half of the contract on your behalf for years. The day you stop offering them the contract, they relax in your presence in a way you have not felt them relax before. Many close relationships are healed, partially or wholly, by one person quietly stopping the renewal of the silent contract that had been governing the relationship. The shift is small in any single evening. Across a year, it can change the entire shape of a life. The face, over months, begins to soften. The shoulders learn what it is to sit at their natural height. The breath stops being a thing you have to monitor and starts being a thing that simply happens. People who have not seen you in a while say something has changed. You yourself, looking back at photographs, notice that the person from 2 years ago looks slightly braced in a way you no longer are. The bracing has come off. The trunk has stopped leaning. The leaves are still moving with the wind. You are still alive in every direction. What is gone is the small, exhausting hope that the wind would do something it cannot do. You may already know what this contract has cost you. The friendships you ended too early, the partners you exhausted by asking them to be the inside of your life, the years of small mornings spent mostly inside the contract, not inside the morning. Once seen, the cost stops compounding. The contract stops generating new costs each evening. A practical question lives quietly underneath all of this. If renunciation is not leaving the world, if the trunk stays where it is and the leaves keep moving, what does that look like in practice? What does an ordinary Tuesday afternoon become? Once the demand has come off, what does the bill in the post become? The difficult email, the phone call you have been putting off, the body that is sometimes in pain. How do we use the things of the world without asking them to save us? Buddhism has a particular, small, deeply practical image for this. A raft. We will look at it together. A man comes to a wide river he cannot swim. He gathers branches and grass and binds them into a raft. He crosses. He reaches the far shore. The Buddha asks his students this: should the man, in gratitude, lift the raft onto his shoulders and carry it for the rest of his journey? They say no. The raft has done its work. The work was the crossing. The wise person sets the raft down at the water's edge and walks on. This is the small, exact image the Buddha offered for how to live with the things of the world once the contract has come off. The partner is a raft. The work is a raft. The home is a raft. The body, in some sense, is a raft. Even the spiritual practice itself is a raft. Each thing has a job. Each thing helps you cross a particular stretch of water. Each is used with respect for what it can do. Each is set down with respect when its water has been crossed. Your teacher in the source talk put it in plain words. Be practical. Carry no extraordinary illusion. Be practical with the relationship. Care for it well. Show up. Listen. Forgive. Be honest. Carry no extraordinary illusion. Do not ask the relationship to be the inside of your life. Be practical with the work. Do it well. Take pride in the craft. Negotiate fairly. Carry no extraordinary illusion. Do not ask the work to be the verdict on whether your life is real Be practical with the body. Feed it well. Move it daily. Allow it to age. Carry no extraordinary illusion. Do not ask the body to be a younger version of itself, a permanent version of itself, a stranger to itself. The instruction is small. Living it is the work of years. What it changes over those years is the texture of every ordinary afternoon. Picture a Tuesday afternoon. The light is the color of ordinary days. The body is in its usual chair. Several practical things are in the room with you. A bill in the post that is larger than expected. An email in the inbox you have been avoiding for 2 days. A phone call you owe a parent who has been declining for years. A small ache somewhere in the lower back. A sense, running underneath all of it, that the day is asking too much. Notice what the contract used to do with this Tuesday. The bill was supposed to vanish. The email was supposed to be already answered. The parent was supposed to be a different parent. The body was supposed to be a body that did not ache. The afternoon was supposed to feel like a different afternoon. The contract demanded that the entire Tuesday rearrange itself into something easier, and the failure of the Tuesday to rearrange itself was the source of most of the suffering inside the room. Now picture the same Tuesday with the contract on the kitchen table where you can see it. The bill is still in the post. The email is still in the inbox. The parent still needs the phone call. The body still aches. Nothing in the room has changed. What has changed is what is being asked of the room. The bill is asked to be a bill. The email is asked to be an email. The phone call is asked to be a phone call. The body is asked to be a body. The Tuesday is asked to be a Tuesday. Nothing more. Nothing extraordinary. The shift sounds small. Inside the body, it is enormous. The shoulders settle by 1/2 inch. The jaw releases. The breath drops down into the belly where it has not been for hours. The mind, for a moment, is not negotiating with the Tuesday. It is simply in the Tuesday doing the next thing. Pay the bill. Open the email. Pick up the phone. Notice the ache. Drink the water. Each task is given the size it actually has on this ordinary Tuesday in this ordinary chair. This is what practical living looks like once the demand has come off. The bill takes 10 minutes, the way bills tend to. The email takes its own time and is over. The parent on the phone is the parent on the phone, a real person on a real evening, a stand-in for nothing. The body that aches is allowed to ache and is given what it needs, and the afternoon continues. By evening, the day has been lived. A life made of such days adds up, over years, to a quiet kind of freedom. Many people, hearing this, notice a small disappointment. They had been hoping for something more dramatic, a peak experience, a breakthrough, a transformation that would lift them out of the ordinary into something glittering. The teaching here is more modest and harder. The freedom is in the Tuesday becoming, finally, a Tuesday. The bills The emails, the phone calls, the small bodily aches becoming, finally, just themselves. An ordinary life, lived without the demand that it be more than ordinary, turns out to be more than ordinary on its own. The release from the demand is what reveals the depth that the demand had been hiding the whole time. A life lived this way begins to feel, after a while, like a long, slow series of crossings. A relationship that was meant to last 20 years and lasted 20 years. Used and set down. A relationship that was meant to last 6 months and lasted 6 months. Used and set down. A job that was meant to feed your family for a decade and fed your family for a decade. Used and set down. A body that was meant to be young until it was not. Used, still in use, on its way to being set down. No grasping, no bitterness, just the long, respectful using and setting down of every raft a life is given. There is a small, startling implication here. If everything is a raft, then nothing has to last for a life to feel complete. The contract we've been carrying has been refusing the loss of every raft, demanding that the partner not change, demanding that the parent not age, demanding that the work not end, demanding that the body not slow. The demand was always going to be broken because every raft eventually reaches its far shore and is set down. Once the raft simile is internalized, the breakages of life land differently. The relationship that ended did not fail. It crossed its river. The job that was lost did not betray you. It crossed its river. The body that is changing is not punishing you. It is crossing its river. Each ending, read this way, is a raft setting down at the edge of its water. The walking on from there is yours. Grief takes a slightly different shape inside this view. The friendship that ended after 15 years, the marriage that closed after 20, the parent who is now gone after a lifetime of loving you, the version of yourself you used to be at 30, who could do things you can no longer do. Each of these has been grieved in the contract version of life as betrayal. Each is grieved in the raft version of life as completion. The grief is no smaller. The grief is differently shaped. A raft that crossed a river and was set down does not betray anyone. It is mourned in a way that allows the mourning to eventually rest. The contract version of grief never rests. It demands the raft come back. It rehearses, for years, the conversations that should have been different. It refuses the simple, mortal fact that the raft did its work, and the work was the crossing. Most of us know someone carrying the loss of a parent for many years in a way that has not lessened. Look closely at that grief. Often, what the grief is, mourning, is not the parent who lived. It is mourning the parent who was never quite there, the apology that was never given, the version of the relationship that was wished for and never built. The contract is still running underneath the grief. The contract has been demanding, for 10 years, that the parent come back and be the parent the contract had been waiting for. The parent cannot. The parent is not even alive anymore. The contract, still unfulfilled, keeps the grief at full strength. When the contract is set down, the grief does not vanish. It changes shape. The grief becomes the simple, human grief of having loved an imperfect person who is no longer here. A grief with edges, with weight, with breath. A grief that can be carried without crushing you. A grief that allows the relationship to be honored for what it actually was. The same shape applies to grieving partners, friends, earlier versions of yourself. The raft simile lets the loss be a loss. A particular kindness becomes available toward the rafts still in use. The partner across the dinner table is in active use. They are crossing a river with you tonight. The job you have been doing for 12 years is in active use. The body in the chair is in active use. Active rafts, noticed clearly, become moving objects to be near. The partner becomes, over time, a person crossing the river of their own life, who has chosen, for now, to cross part of it with you. The work becomes a small, useful boat. The body becomes the raft you have been on the entire time, faithful even when you have demanded too much of it. Each of these, seen as a raft, becomes more precious, not less. The preciousness comes from the fact that the raft is in active use, right now. For this stretch of water, the raft will not always be there. The using of it tonight is enough. This is also where genuine gratitude returns to a life. The contract has no room for gratitude. The contract reads each thing as a debt the world owes you. Debts cannot be received with gratitude. They can only be tracked as paid or unpaid. Once the contract is set down, each raft arrives as a small gift, freely given. Gratitude returns, very quietly, to the partner who is still here tonight, the body that is still walking, the job that has been steady, the friend who has stayed. The gratitude is not performed. It rises on its own. It rises because the demand had been keeping it suppressed. A practical concern often arrives at this point. If everything is a raft, does the world become thin? Does it stop mattering? Does the partner become someone you would shrug off in the morning? The opposite turns out to be true. A raft known to be a raft is touched more carefully than one mistaken for the far shore. The relationship known to be a raft is loved with more attention than the relationship that has been mistaken for salvation. The body known to be a raft is cared for with more tenderness than the body that has been mistaken for a permanent address. Knowing the raft is what allows you to use it well. Releasing the demand on each thing is what allows each thing to be loved properly. Holding each thing as the answer is what wears each thing thin. The freedom of this view is freedom for the world, not freedom from it. Free for the partner to be a partner. Free for the work to be the work. Free for the body to be a body. Free for an ordinary Tuesday to be an ordinary Tuesday. What you may have been calling freedom for years may have been freedom from. What is being offered tonight is freedom for. There is a small, particular pleasure in using a raft well. An evening with a partner, knowing this evening is its own crossing. A morning at work, knowing the work is the day's small task, nothing more. A walk through a familiar street, noticing that the street is also a raft, carrying you across this small stretch of life. Each of these, when used and not asked to be more than itself, has its own quiet sweetness. The sweetness is what the contract was always blocking. The contract demanded peaks. The world delivered ordinary moments. The contract called the moments insufficient. The moments were never the problem. The expectation laid over them was. What this changes, in any close relationship, is the way you hold the other person across an ordinary year. You stop asking them to be the destination. You begin to notice them as a person who is also crossing, with their own current pulling at them, their own weather, their own quiet exhaustion at the end of long days. The relationship becomes, at moments, two rafts moving alongside each other for as long as the river allows. Some rivers are short, some are long, some bring you across whole stretches of life. The using of it together, while the river holds you both, is the relationship. Something quieter waits underneath this view, for many people who live with it for a while. If the rafts come and go, if every relationship is being set down at some river's edge, if every job ends, if everybody changes, what about the part of you that has been doing the crossing? What is the rider on these rafts? What walks on from one shore to the next when each raft is set down? That question is the second half of this evening. Before we walk into it, there is one more thing many listeners experience after the chasing has slowed. A kind of quiet emptiness. An emptiness that feels, at first, like something has gone wrong. Tonight we name that emptiness for what it is and what it has been quietly preparing in you the whole time. So we name it. I do not see a reason to keep going. That is the sentence many of you have been hearing in the quiet hours, after you finally stop chasing them. If that sentence has gotten heavy in a way that scares you, please reach out to a person in your home tonight or to a crisis line in your country. Take care of yourself first. For everyone else, stay with me here for a while. What you are feeling has a name: the empty phase. It happens to almost everyone who walks this path. The Buddha himself walked through it 25 centuries ago. The early Buddhist teachers wrote about it after him. Each of them said the same thing. This phase is real. Your mind is fine. The work is doing what it is supposed to do. This phase passes. The Buddha called it one of the gates the path quietly walks you through. It is happening to people in other rooms tonight. It is the phase that comes after you finally stop chasing them. Think about what you have been doing for years, waiting for them to change, hoping they would notice, planning the conversation that would finally fix it, picking out the right words, replaying the last fight in your head. All of that took energy, All of that filled the hours. All of that gave the day a job to do. Now it has stopped. The hours are still there. The energy is still there. But the job is gone. That is what the empty phase actually is. A house with the work taken out of it. You come home and the door does not slam open with the old anxiety. You make dinner and you are not rehearsing what to say to them. You sit on the sofa and you are not waiting for a text. The phone is just a phone. The evening is just an evening. Some part of you keeps reaching for the old job. The old job is gone. You may catch yourself making up reasons for why you feel flat. Maybe I am depressed. Maybe something is wrong with me. Maybe I am with the wrong person. Maybe I should quit my job. Maybe I should move. Maybe I should change everything. Notice each one of these as it shows up. They are not the real story. They are your mind looking for the next thing to chase. The chasing has stopped. That is all that has happened. There is a teaching from the Buddha that may help you here. He said all of our suffering comes from one thing: wanting. And the wanting comes in 3 flavors. Wanting pleasant things, wanting to be a certain kind of person, and the third, the one that visits in the empty phase. Wanting things to just stop, wanting the body not to have to keep getting up in the morning, wanting the future to be cancelled. The Buddha said this third wanting is the same wanting as the other 2. All 3 demand that the world be a certain way. The release the path is walking you toward is from all wanting at once, in any direction it might come. The waiting was a kind of company. The waiting kept you busy. The waiting filled the hours when they were not in the room. The waiting gave you something to lean against. Now the waiting has stopped, and the rooms are simply rooms again. The hours are simply hours again. The mind does not know what to do with rooms and hours that are not bent towards someone. That is what the empty phase feels like for many of you tonight. This is a passage, not a destination. Behind you is the old place, where everything in your life was a candidate to fix the hollow. A new conversation might fix it. A weekend away might fix it. A different version of them might fix it. Ahead of you is a quieter place, where the world is just the world, and you do not need it to fix anything anymore. The empty phase is the road between those 2 places. It can feel like the path was a mistake. The path is not a mistake. The flatness you are feeling is the proof that something old has actually let go. Here is what helps. Trust your body more than your mind right now. Your body is reporting that something has finally stopped. Your mind is reporting that something is wrong. Your body is closer to what is actually happening. Listen for it tonight. A loosening behind the chest. A heaviness in the arms and legs that is not tiredness, only settling. A breath dropped lower than it has been in years. Each of those is your body finally putting down the bracing it has carried for so long. Trust it. Do not try to chase your way out of this phase. Reaching for the next thing makes it last longer. Pushing yourself to feel something makes it last longer. Telling yourself it will never end makes it last longer. Let it last as long as it actually needs to. That is what allows it to thin. The chasing comes in 100 shapes. Scrolling your phone for hours, hoping the right message will come in. Buying things online and not even opening the box. Booking a trip you cannot afford. Texting them again. Watching the same comfort show on a loop. Each of those is your body reaching for a chase. Notice when you are about to do one of these. Reach for stillness instead. Stillness is the medicine. When that sentence comes back, the one about not seeing a reason to keep going, notice it. Watch it. Do not sign your name to it. It is the same demand wearing a new face. The old face was, if only they would change. The new face is, nothing is ever going to be enough. Both of them are the same demand. The same release works on both. Watch the sentence without joining it. Find someone who has walked through this phase before and come out the other side. A friend who has been through a long darkness. A teacher who has met this phase in many other people. The empty phase is much shorter next to someone who knows what it is. The empty phase is much longer next to someone who thinks you are broken. Someone who has not been through it will often try to fix you. The fixing makes the phase longer. The right person sits next to you. They do not try to lift the weight off you. They simply make sure you are not alone in the dark. Do the small things your body asks for. Walk outside, even just to the corner. Eat slowly. Sleep when your body wants to sleep. Drink water. Look at the sky for a minute. Your body has been waiting for years to be allowed to move at this slower pace. Let it. Your mind will catch up. On the harder days, push yourself a little. The empty phase is not permission to disappear from your life. Show up for the things you already said you would do. Cook the dinner. Send the message. Walk the dog. Do them without expecting them to feel like much. They will keep the small structure of your life intact while this passes. Structure is gentle on the empty phase. Disappearing is not. If a partner or close friend asks what is happening with you, say it in plain words. Something has slowed down in me. I am okay. I am not in danger. I am in a phase that is going to pass. I would like you to be near me without trying to fix me. Most people will accept that if you tell them plainly. Hiding the phase is heavier than letting the people who love you see it. Watch for the small surprises when they start to come back. The first surprise of joy after a long, flat stretch is usually tiny. A bird outside the kitchen window, a cool breeze on your face, a song on the radio that lands oddly accurately on a hard evening. Your body notices first. Your mind catches up later, often surprised that it was there the whole time. When the small surprise arrives, do not chase it. Let it pass. The next one will come on its own. What waits on the other side is quieter than what most spiritual stories promise. They promise a big breakthrough, a flood of joy, a new self that walks around in light. The actual experience for most people is much smaller. The empty phase does not end with fireworks. It thins. One morning, the kitchen feels slightly different. The next week, a friend's voice lands in a way it has not landed in a long time. A song you used to hear without hearing it arrives, for one evening, as if it were written for the room you are in. The empty phase has not been replaced. The empty phase has begun to let ordinary life back through it. The thinning happens at its own pace. For some of you, a few weeks. For others, a few months. For some of you, longer. The pace is not in your hands. What is in your hands is whether you keep walking on the path while the phase is in your room. Walking on the path through the empty phase is the practice. The phase thins because the practice keeps going. What comes back is enough. The contract you used to hold demanded a lot. The world was always quietly delivering enough. The contract called enough a failure. Once the contract is set down, enough turns out to be what an honest life actually feels like. The morning is enough. The cup of tea is enough. Your body in the chair is enough. The breath you are taking right now is enough. Enough is what the contract was hiding from you. What also comes back is steadiness. The Buddha called this equanimity and named it as one of the 4 warm hearts of the path. A steady attention that is not numb. The calm of a person whose feelings have started arriving at their real, non-blown-up size. Steadiness shows up as a body taking a breath without first arguing about whether the breath is worth taking. The person you were waiting on starts to look different too. Not changed, just visible for the first time. The parts of them you could not see while you were demanding they be different, you can see now. The limits of who they actually are, the shape of their own pain, the way they have been doing what they could with what they were given. None of this excuses what has hurt you. Seeing them is a different thing from excusing them. Often what you find is that they were never able to give what your contract was asking for. Old questions begin to answer themselves. Why did they not come through? Why did the love feel so close to the wound? They did not come through because the contract was asking for what was not in them to give. The seeing is a quiet, almost surgical relief. If you have ever sat with someone in the last weeks of their life, you may have already seen this kind of steadiness. A person who has, over months, let the demands go. What you find, sitting next to such a person, is rarely cold. It is a warm, almost shocking presence. A person with nothing left to demand has, very often, a great deal left to give. The empty phase is the early version of that release, arriving in the middle of your life as a gift you did not ask for. Most people only meet that kind of steadiness at the end of their lives, if they meet it at all. The empty phase is a doorway to meeting it now, while there is still time to live inside it for years. What you walk through this phase to reach is not survival. It is a kind of life most people never get to live. If you have stayed with me this far, something in you has already started the work. The listening itself is a small step on the path through. The mind that found this evening was looking for a way through. The body that has been listening has already started receiving an answer. Trust the small movement that has just happened in you. It is real. It is the beginning of the thinning. Nothing about the world has to change for the next phase to arrive. The kitchen is the same kitchen. The body is the same body. The relationships are the same relationships. The work is the same work. What has changed is the looking. The looking, finally, is no longer demanding. The looking, finally, is just looking. What it sees, when it is just looking, is the room you walked into tonight, changed by nothing, changed by everything. And then the morning comes. You wake up. Same bed, same partner sleeping next to you, or same empty space where they used to be. Same kitchen waiting, same kettle, same chair. Nothing has changed. And everything has. This is what the Buddha and the old Buddhist teachers said would happen. They said the world the suffering person walks through and the world the free person walks through are the same world. Not a different one, not a better one, the same one. They said the change happens in the looking, not in the world. There is a famous teaching from the old Buddhist texts about a father with 3 children playing inside a burning house. The children are too small to understand the danger. The father cannot drag them out by force. So he calls to them through the window. Come outside. There are beautiful toys waiting in the yard. The children come running out, expecting toys. What they find when they get to the yard is something much larger than toys. They find their lives saved. The teachers said, this is what the path has been doing for you all along. You were promised relief from the demand. You were promised a quieter mind. You were promised the end of the loop in your chest. What you find when you walk through the doorway is something you were not even asking for. The world. You have walked outside. The yard is this kitchen. The yard is the partner across the table. The yard is the body in the chair. The yard is the morning you have been walking through for years without ever quite seeing it. The morning was always there. You were watching the inside of your own demanding instead. The demanding has come off. The morning is what is left. The light coming through the window has a particular angle to it. It has had that angle for years. You did not see it because you were rehearsing what to say to them when they came down the stairs. Today there is nothing to rehearse. The light is just light. You see it for the first time. The cup of coffee on the table has steam coming off it in a particular shape. You have made coffee like this thousands of times. Today, the steam is steam. You see it. The partner across the table is chewing toast. They have chewed toast at this table for years. You have been waiting for them to look up and see you the way you wanted to be seen. They have chewed the toast through every one of those years. Today they are just chewing toast. You see them, not the version of them you were waiting for, the actual them, the actual chewing, the actual person. You stand up. You walk to the bathroom. You step into the shower. The water is the same temperature it has been for years. Today you actually feel it on your shoulders. The water on the back of your neck. The water sliding down your spine. The warmth gathering in the small of your back. Your body has been showering for years. Today your body knows it is showering. That is the difference. This is what the old teachers meant. The world had not been hidden from you. You had been demanding that the world be different than it was. The demanding put a layer over your eyes. Now the layer has come off. The world is here. It was always here. You can see it now. You do not have to fix anything. You do not have to change the partner. You do not have to leave the partner. You do not have to keep the partner. Whatever is right will become clear to you in time. From this side of the empty phase, the right next step usually shows itself softly, without urgency. There is no demand pulling at you to act now. The next move will come on its own. A conversation happens that day with the partner. Maybe it is about the dishes. Maybe it is about money. Maybe it is about something old and unresolved. The conversation goes differently than the same conversation has always gone. Nothing about the words has changed. Nothing about the partner has changed. What has changed is that you are not trying to extract anything from the conversation anymore. You are not trying to make them admit you are right. You are not trying to make them love you better. You are not trying to make this exchange be the one that finally fixes the whole pattern. You are just talking. They notice the difference before you do. They soften without quite knowing why. The conversation lands somewhere new without either of you steering it there. The teachers had a phrase for this place. They said the world we suffered in and the world that is free of suffering are not two different worlds. They are the same world, with the demanding taken out of the looking. You go out for a walk later that day. The street is the same street. The trees you walk past are the same trees you have walked past for years. Something is different about them. The leaves are arranged in a way you have not noticed. The light coming through the branches is doing something quiet that you have walked underneath 1,000 times without seeing. The pavement under your feet has its own small temperature. The breeze on the side of your face has its own small weight. All of this was here yesterday. All of this was here 10 years ago. You see it today because there is room inside you to see it. The sounds of the street arrive in a different way. A car passing. A child shouting in a playground 3 blocks away. A door closing somewhere above you. They are not background noise to be tuned out. They are not interruptions to the loop in your head, because the loop is quieter. Each sound arrives, lands inside you for a second, and is gone. You hear the city the way the city has been there all along. This is not a special day. This is what every day looks like once the demanding has come off. There is no breakthrough. There is no flooding of joy. There is no new self walking around in light. There is only the world slowly arriving for the first time. Friends look different now. The old friend who was always disappointing you is the same friend they always were. The disappointment was the demand you had placed on them. With the demand off, you see the friend. Sometimes you see that the friendship was never quite a friendship. Sometimes you see that it was always a friendship, and your demanding was the only thing standing in the way of receiving it. Either way, the seeing is clean. The seeing is not bitter. The seeing simply tells you what to do with the friendship from here. Family members look different too. The parent you have spent decades hoping would finally apologize. The sibling who has been competing with you since you were both children. The aunt who has been small and cutting at every gathering for 30 years. They do not change. They do not need to change. Your demanding that they be different has come off. What you see now is who they actually are, what they have been carrying, what was in their hands when they had you, or grew up alongside you, or married into your life. Some of it is still hard to be around. You will notice that you can be around the hard part now without it taking the whole day from you. The demand is what used to make it take the whole day. What about the person you came in here tonight thinking about? The partner, the parent, the sibling, the friend who has been hurting you for years. You may find that this person looks different too. They are not less of what they were. They are more visible. The pattern they have been running is clearer than it was. Their reasons are clearer. Your own reasons for staying are clearer. Their limits are clearer. Your own limits are clearer. The whole shape of the relationship is in front of you, in plain light, for the first time in a long time. From this clearer seeing, the next move will become obvious to you. Sometimes the next move is to stay. Sometimes it is to leave. Sometimes it is to change the shape of the contact. Sometimes it is to be in their life with no further expectation that they will ever change. Whichever one it is, the move will not feel like another demand on the world. It will feel like the next small step on a path that is already quietly walking itself. There will still be moments when an old trigger lands. They say the thing they always say. They forget the date again. They walk past you in the kitchen without looking up. The old wave starts to rise inside you. The old sentence forms in your chest. If only they would. Today you notice the wave starting. You feel its shape. You feel the place in the body where it begins. You do not have to push it away. You do not have to argue with it. You watch it. It rises. It crests. It falls. The wave passes through you and is gone. The kitchen is still the kitchen. They are still themselves. You are still here. Inside you, things have rearranged themselves. The chest is not braced. The breath is not shallow. The mind is not running ahead of the day, planning, defending, rehearsing. The mind is just here, with the coffee, with the partner, with the toast, with the morning, with the body in the chair. You cook dinner that evening. You stand at the counter chopping onions. The knife is the same knife. The board is the same board. The onion is the same onion. Today you smell it. The sharpness rising into your eyes. the white rings opening under the blade, the first warmth coming off the pan when the oil hits. You are not thinking about 100 other things while you cook. You are not rehearsing a phone call you are dreading. You are just cooking. The food tastes like food when you sit down to eat it. Your body says, "Oh, so this is what eating has been all along." The night closes differently too. You lie down in the same bed where you have lain down for years. The ceiling is the same ceiling. The dark is the same dark. Today there is no rerun playing, no imagined conversation, no replaying of what they said, what you should have said, what they will say next time. There is just the dark, just the body, just the breath going slowly out of the chest. Sleep arrives sooner than it has in a long time. The body knows it is allowed to rest now. Something else has shifted that you may not have noticed yet. You have started giving things to the people around you that you were never able to give before. A real listening, because there is room inside you to listen now. A patience, because nothing inside you is in a hurry. A warmth that is not strategy, not earning, not negotiation. The teachers said this would happen too. They said when a person stops demanding from the world, the person quietly becomes someone the world wants to be around. You did not set out to become this. It is a side effect of the demanding coming off. The children in your life feel it before they can name it. A grandchild who used to be a little careful around you sits closer than they did before. A son or daughter who has not called in months sends a message asking how you are. A young colleague stops by your desk to ask a question they would not have asked you a year ago. They cannot say what is different. They feel it in their bodies before their minds catch up. A person who is not demanding anything from them is rare in their world. They notice when one walks into the room. The teachers said something else about this place. They said it is not a state you arrive at once and then keep forever. It is a way of looking that comes and goes. Some mornings the demanding will rise back up inside you. You will catch the sentence forming again. If only they would. If only it were. If only I had. You will recognize it now. You will set it down again. The path is not a one-time graduation. The path is the small daily setting down of the demand, every time it tries to lift itself back up. This is the work for the rest of your life. It is also, quietly, the rest of your life. Notice your breath right now. It is moving on its own. No one is asking it to be deeper. No one is asking it to be slower. No one is asking it to deliver anything. It is just breathing. The body is just sitting. The room is just holding you. This is what the path leaves you with. Not a different life. The same life, finally seen. And here you still are. The same room you walked into tonight. The same body in the same chair. The same breath moving through the same chest. Notice what is no longer in the room with you. The sentence that arrived in your head when you started listening. The if only. The waiting. The bracing. It came in here with you. It is not going out with you. Your breath is moving on its own now. No one is asking it to be deeper. No one is asking it to be slower. No one is asking it to deliver anything at all. The body in the chair has nothing to do, nothing to plan, nothing to fix, nothing to win. The room around you is just holding you. Same walls, same light, same evening. Nothing has changed. And everything has. Stay here for as long as you need. The breath will keep going. The body will keep sitting. The room will keep holding you. There is nowhere you need to be. There is nothing you need to carry out of here. What came in with you can stay behind.